What's up, you guys? Fucking, this is a different kind of video today. We stay reacting to Marvel's most sadistic villain. And you guys don't know me, but a nigga like me, I love some gore. You know what I mean? Like, type of shit where they don't just kill their enemy, they play with them a little bit. You know what I mean? Make them go through the ringer on. You know what I mean? Torture, all that. That's me right there. Alright, I love to watch stuff like that. That's why Rising of a Shield Hero, Redo of a Healer, that's one of my tops right there. That's one of my tops right there. Especially Redo of a Healer. When season 2 come out, best believe I'm gonna be the first one watching it. I'm telling you right now. But I'm not gonna talk too much. You know what I mean? The video is 30 minutes long, so we're gonna get into this. Hope you guys enjoy. You know what I mean?
If it isn't my old buddy Daredevil. Hope you aren't still angry over me killing your gal pal Elektra.
Never watched too much of Daredevil. I had a couple though.
It doesn't
I had Iron Man and Spider-Man comics.
matter when.
Don't ask me what volume. I was like 4 or 5. I don't remember. Okay? Don't ask me.
Where or what you do. If you're on Bullseye's hit list, it's over. Of course, you may be thinking, so what? He can hit any target. Big deal. This man killed somebody with his fucking boogers. Killed a target with a toothpick from 100 yards away and shot a tooth out of his mouth so fast it was like a bullet. Just because he could. It's not like he has a mutant power either that allows him to never miss with any object. This is literally just something he can do. It'd be a beautiful thing to behold if it weren't so grotesque in the way he uses his natural talent. Because trust me, it'd be harder to list the things he hasn't done.
Bro, he's not even a super villain. He's just a villain. He's just a villain doing it. Like, I get Daredevil too. My bad for spitting out. But I get Daredevil too. Like, he's not a superhero either. But like, his whole thing is just because he's blind from like a chemical accident or whatever, from what I remember. So I can kind of get it, but at the same time, a toothpick from 100 yards away, broke a tooth, spit it out, and killed somebody. Killed somebody with a booger, cuz. A booger. But that man really said, dead. Dead. And he has no superpowers. He's just a regular dude. Regular person just like me and you.
Simply because of how insane Bullseye is. For crying out loud, there was a time Bullseye was once hired by the Kingpin to kill the Punisher, right? Now, any other assassin would maybe track him down and try to kill him in some practical manner. Maybe snipe him from afar, or track down one of his many safe houses and blow it sky high. But what does Bullseye do? He treats this task like he's making art. He's so meticulous, so methodical in every way he goes about bringing the end to Frank Castle. He takes time to study Castle. He eats what he eats. He sleeps where he slept. He uses the same shampoo he uses. To the point he goes to the suburbs, pretends to be a loving father and husband to a family he kidnapped, and kills them the same way Castle's family was killed, with the family fully and dreadfully aware they were on track to meeting their maker. Can you just imagine that for a second? You're eating breakfast with your family one day. Maybe your dad went out to walk the dog or something, and then bam, some dude waltzes into your home acting like he's your father, all the while holding a gun to your head. All to just be an experiment to understand Frank Castle, a person you've never even met in your whole life. It's horrifying. It's deplorable. It's sadistic, plain and simple, and just one of the many infinite reasons he's a monster through and through. Bullseye is an envious, soulless, remorseless monster that I feel like is sorely
Brother man broke into somebody's house and said, "Honey, I'm home. Where's my husband?" Oh! Nah. Imagine you just went out to walk your dog. Somebody's just like, "Hey, bud." Done. And like, it's not crazy to imagine, cause like, you know how America is. So that could dead happen. Like, imagine somebody's like known as like top hitter or some shit like that. Top Hamadola. You know what I mean? Top shotter. And somebody put a hit out on them, yo. Now you got somebody like this. You don't know nothing about nothing. You got somebody like this just naturally. King Von, K.I., NBA Youngboy type. They pop your shit. You went up to the gates. You looking down watching. Bro's got your whole family tied up, eating breakfast with him. Your wife showering with him. He's fucking your wife. He's giving advice to your son. Giving advice to your daughter. Helping your son shave. All kinds of shit. Just to set them up to get killed. And him be the only survivor. So you can see how somebody else felt. So you can kill them.
Underrated and completely undervalued. So if you feel like it, let's get down to the bottom of Bullseye together and allow me to explain to you why I think he's perhaps the most
we gotta put this fucker in Marvel Rivals.
Sadistic villain in Marvel Comics.
Put this nigga in
As a
Rivals.
child, Lester, or Ben, or Dex, or Poindexter, or Leonard was a son to a family of 4. He had a brother named Nate, an abusive drunk for a father, and a mother who felt as if this was the life that she deserved. Those days were simple. Leonard would go to school, come home, do his homework, and then hop up to the roof with Nate to try and shoot down the birds. Of course, Nate could never hit the targets, but Leonard never missed. These were simple days, but the bad ones, when they came around, it was awful. The beatings drove Leonard and Nate to the brink. So one day, while eating breakfast, they sort of just agreed that they had to kill their father. So one day, returning from school, Leonard found his home aflame. He saw his brother Nate up above screaming that their mother was killed and to get away before their father would pull Nate back into the fire covered in flames head to toe. It was only after the fire that Leonard got around from foster family to foster family to foster family, finally ending up with the Wilkersons. They were a nice bunch that brought Leonard to a brighter future his real family never could, motivating Leonard to take up some activity to help him thrive, like baseball. For Leonard to become a Major League Baseball player, it took simply 3 games to get him there because of his impeccable record. Leonard was happy. He felt like the whole world was watching him, watching what he could do, and he fucking loved it. But as he kept getting the opposing team to strike out to no challenge, after a while, as much as Leonard got bored, so did the audience. But his foster father was there at every game to support Leonard, shedding tears of joy for his son, never growing tired of his adopted son's talent, proud of the man Leonard had gone on to become. But in all that glory, now dissipating as fast as it arrived, and with no one able to stand against Leonard's pitch, Leonard thought about spicing things up after being convinced to keep pitching by his coach despite asking to be benched himself, throwing the ball so hard and so fast that he killed the batter instantly, scarring hundreds of people watching on. All the while, Leonard had a smile from ear to ear, saying in that moment of pure bliss, "Bullseye." After this, Leonard was subsequently kicked out of the league due to his propensity for calculated violence, a dispassionate attitude for killing, and an incredible talent to use any object as a deadly weapon, which gave Leonard a surprising opportunity to work for the CIA. All the training was child's play for Leonard, to the point it only took days for Leonard to get his first assignment in Nicaragua. The assignment was to train a group of rebels, but that turned out to be the last thing on Leonard's mind, because while on assignment he figured he could basically make a run for it and never look back. The plan he had was pretty solid: steal a plane, get a new identity, score a ton of money, and sayonara. The only thing he didn't have that he thought would be in abundance was the money factor. So in order to secure enough cash to go through with his plan, he took out an airfield popular in Nicaragua for shipping drugs, making it so that the rebels were in control of whatever got in or out, which in turn began to secure Leonard a fuck ton of money. However, with every positive there's always a negative that follows suit. Nobody liked this, and word got out fast, all the way to the Punisher, who made it his mission to put an end to Leonard's drug ring. Face to face with the Punisher, Leonard made Frank Castle look like a chump at every turn. Leonard would chuck a knife through his bulletproof vest by surprise, so Frank would throw a grenade in response, only for Leonard to match his ferocity and skill by launching a toothpick right where the pin would release and throw the grenade right back to Castle. Frank, nearly dying, would attempt to fire his rifle at Leonard, so Leonard would throw a knife into the barrel of Frank's rifle, mocking the Punisher by screaming to him, asking if this is the best he can do, even using mud on the ground to paint a bullseye on his forehead. However, before the fight could continue, the DEA got in the middle of things and put Leonard into federal custody, where he landed a job in the NSA, which
I just realized this is his backstory. My bad, yo.
he also managed to wiggle out of as well and hop on a train all the way back to New York to become a supervillain and make a big and bold name for himself. Bullseye. And Bullseye hit the town like a bomb, starting off with a series of high-profile jobs by going to the homes and offices of incredibly rich people and throwing paper airplanes at them with a message stating, "Pay me $100,000 or I will kill you," signed Bullseye. These bloody murders set as an example of what happens if you don't pay Bullseye, and the total blatant disregard for getting caught by incompetent law enforcement. The presses seek out Bullseye along with Daredevil. Understanding that Bullseye is a character that craves publicity, Daredevil lets himself get caught so to put an end to his carnage, engaging in a well-televised event named by Bullseye the Circus of Death. This is a battle that puts Daredevil to the test. Bullseye has goons with guns sicked on civilians so that if Daredevil wins, the people will die. And if Daredevil loses, he just kind of dies along with everyone else anyway. Daredevil manages to maneuver his way through the fight in a way where he can save everyone without losing the attention of Bullseye, leading to Bullseye's cowardly retreat. This is still very much in that campy era of Daredevil, so Bullseye's debut is portrayed to be a bit silly, and although Bullseye meets a pretty anticlimactic end, he comes back once again and kidnaps Daredevil's love interest at the time, Black Widow, and tortures her to get back at Daredevil for winning them.
Ain't no Black Widow was with Daredevil. But that's critical. Black Widow getting fucked over? Yeah, nah. Probably double, literally.
The last time, which grasps the attention of infamous crime lord Wilson Fisk, tasking Bullseye to kill anyone who would get in his way, but most importantly, Daredevil. Yet after so many defeats by Daredevil and Kingpin's total discardment of Bullseye like used toilet paper, what once was a deadly reputation Leonard had held as the world's deadliest assassin, it quickly plummeted when everyone started spreading the word that Daredevil had made Bullseye an utter has-been. Bullseye's life wasn't made any better when he began to start hallucinating Daredevil wherever he went due to suffering from a malignant brain tumor, which led Bullseye to manically go around New York, killing anyone who ever came across him, leading to a death toll reaching nearly 100 innocent lives taken on Christmas Eve. It was in Daredevil stopping Bullseye in a subway tunnel and watching the train about to kill Bullseye that Matt almost considered letting Leonard be the exception to his no-kill rule for all the pain and murder he's caused. But in the end, Matt would show mercy, which really pissed off the authorities, basically telling Matt that if Bullseye breaks out and goes on another murder spree, which, let's face it, that's bound to happen no matter.
Because, he's going to go to jail and get charged with either multiple life sentences or the death penalty. Which mass murder, I'm pretty sure, is always death penalty. Should have just left him on the tracks. He was going to die anyways. Wait, you wanted to give that nigga another couple months? Fuck.
For what you do in these comics, the blood won't be on Bullseye's hands, but Daredevil's. It's while in prison, recuperating, and word continuing to go around that Bullseye is nothing but a schmuck, that Bullseye meticulously plans his escape, and digs deep on finding out who Daredevil really is. It gets to a point that Leonard locks himself inside of a room for a week, connecting dots and using various files on the incidents he's caused. That Bullseye pays close attention to how much Matt and Daredevil look exactly the same, how they sound the same, how they have the same mannerisms, convinced that they're the same person. So to test out if they are the same person, Bullseye sets out to kill someone Daredevil holds dear to get sweet revenge. Elektra. What I find incredibly interesting is that upon Bullseye killing Elektra, he describes himself in that moment to be completely obsessed with her. He couldn't think about anything else other than killing her. Whether he knew she was important to Daredevil at the time, and if it was the motivator, he's unsure of. But the feeling he got stabbing Elektra through the chest could be described as nothing less of euphoric. In that moment, he killed the newest, deadliest assassin in the world, and someone possibly very close to Daredevil or Matt, and felt like he was back on top again. But that moment was fleeting. Not soon after would Daredevil hunt down Bullseye like a bat out of hell, beating the holy hell out of Bullseye till they'd find each other hanging precariously off of a power line, with Daredevil holding onto Bullseye dangling over a, let's say, 3-story drop. Bullseye's laughing at Daredevil inside and out, practically saying, "I won. I killed your girl, and you can't kill me, man. You're a superhero. You saved me." You don't have the guts to kill me. Only Daredevil's like, yeah, I don't care. This is when their brutal rivalry really and truly begins. Before, it was all sort of a game for Bullseye, but here
I like what he did there.
After this moment, Bullseye wants nothing more than to make Daredevil's life a living fucking hell. Daredevil approaches Bullseye once more at the hospital with his body completely destroyed, and plays a game of Russian roulette to scare the daylights out of Bullseye so to never pursue a life of villainy again. And Bullseye is left genuinely terrified after the fact. Yet I want to add that the story is more than just the Russian roulette. It's far more nuanced. See, over the course of the turns they take, Matt tells Bullseye about a kid named Chucky that was affected by Daredevil and Bullseye without their knowing. Chucky practically worshipped Daredevil, and since Chucky lived in his own world a lot of the time pretending to be his sidekick and all, it got him in trouble at school a good couple of times. And his father would take out a lot of pent-up aggression onto Chucky. So when arriving home, Chucky would always replay the tapes of the Circus of Death over and over, astonished by his #1 hero facing adversity and taking down Bullseye when everything was stacked against him. Daredevil at the very least represented a good role model for Chucky that he desperately needed to be a good person. And it didn't make matters any better when Chucky's father was into some shady business, which eventually led him to cross paths with Daredevil. Chucky witnessing his own father pull a gun on Daredevil and taken down by his own role model, this shattered Chucky's reality. Seeing that his own father was a bad guy like Bullseye, and because Chucky is his father's son, Chucky came to the conclusion, like a child would, that he wasn't like Daredevil at all. He was like Bullseye, leading Chucky to shoot a kid at his own school with a gun exactly like his father's. Luckily, the child survived, but Chucky was left after the fact completely broken, which later leads Matt to beg the question of what the point of his mission truly is. If Matt goes out to do as much good as he possibly can and inspire others as Daredevil, then doesn't that mean that Bullseye could also incite the very same twisted inspiration? No matter what they both do, they are two sides of the same coin and are forever stuck with each other. It's probably my favorite issue in Frank Miller's entire run on Daredevil because of this idea it brings up for readers. Now, Bullseye does come back to his senses. He gets his body laced with adamantium to become stronger than ever, and what do you know? He says, "I'm gonna commit identity theft now," and poses as Daredevil to...
Bro said, "Oh yeah, let me just get a vibranium skull real quick. Let me just get a whole adamantium skeleton real quick implanted into me. Nothing too crazy." Like, bro, what the fuck, nigga? I know it's like a serum or something, yeah.
Becomes completely convinced he's actually Daredevil, robbing the rich and giving to the poor. However, never a man quite sane, because he gets up to some very vile things in this arc that make my skin fucking crawl, man. Among this, it also doesn't help that Matt ends up suffering from complete amnesia, leading Matt to dress up as Bullseye a bit later, and ultimately end up facing off against Leonard once more to reclaim his title as Daredevil. It's really an arc for Daredevil to behold, I'm telling you. After which, Bullseye goes on and defeats Deadpool single-handedly and continues to work for Kingpin, I'm telling you. After which, Bullseye goes on and defeats Deadpool single-handedly. An arc for Daredevil to behold, I'm telling you. After which, Bullseye goes on and defeats Deadpool single-handedly.
Defeats Deadpool single-handedly. The same nigga who has a bag where he has infinite guns, grenades, ammos, bullshit. The same nigga who can get his head chopped off and just put his head back on or grow a new body. The same nigga who can get shot in his medulla, he'll be all down for a second and then his shit will start growing back within like 2 to 3 minutes. He defeated that nigga. This nigga. I don't know, unplugged my headphones, bro.
and continues to work for Kingpin while Daredevil becomes Death Devil for some reason. By this point, everything was bleeding into the 90s, where it was all starting to become a bit iffy, so just leave it at that. However, remarkably, Bullseye becomes an incredibly malleable villain from here on, facing against foes such as Luke Cage, Captain America, Hitmonkey, Hawkeye, Wolverine.
Don't know Hitmonkey, sorry.
And fucking Batman. What? There's something I really have...
What? They said, fuck it, we have this nigga fight against a DC hero, nigga.
To take a moment to admire about that. Bullseye, at this point, has achieved a level that not many villains can climb. Bullseye started out as this campy villain, not meant to be taken seriously whatsoever. And now, whenever he appears, you just know some shit's gonna go down. When Bullseye shows up in another person's comic, you best believe he's gonna do anything to make it personal so that he's remembered by them. After all, Bullseye is an attention seeker when all is said and done. Yet no amount of misery he deals out to other heroes ever comes close to giving him that feeling of satisfaction, like when he torments Daredevil. Because it's in Kevin Smith's Daredevil run where I believe Bullseye commits his most heinous act onto Daredevil. The one that keeps him oh so warm at night, just thinking about it. To simply see his rival so utterly helpless and defeated. Basically, to sum it up very briefly for you, Mysterio was dying of cancer and looking to pull off his magnum opus. So he hired Bullseye to kidnap a baby from St. Maggie's Church to torment Daredevil.
Imagine being a super villain and you die for cancer, bro. That shit critical.
He does this just because. But in the middle of the operation, Bullseye kills Karen Page in front of Daredevil. Now imagine your girlfriend was just brutally murdered in front of you, and the killer managed to get away. You're forced to swallow all that pain and learn to move on. You find a new love, but then your secret identity gets revealed, and then upon your nemesis learning your secret identity, decides to torment that new love, all the while attempting to kill you. I think you'd be more than a little pissed off. Maybe you'd see red. Maybe you'd beat the ever-living shit out of your girlfriend's murderer, and then carve their symbol on their forehead with a rock close by. So anywhere they go, they'll always remember that moment of sheer brutality dealt onto them, when everything felt hopeless for them, what it felt like to be a victim for a change. However, there is an alternate version of this story that was sort of scrapped, but then added upon much later that I really love. Now, similar to how Daredevil meets Milo Donovan in Bendis' run, Daredevil meets this bank teller by saving her from the owl. From then on, we learn how they fell in love, got married, and eventually have a son. And now we're supposed to be that son reading her last will and testament, walking us through her life and how it was irreversibly changed upon meeting Daredevil. How close friends left her side in fear for her life being married to a superhero and all. How she never lost faith that Daredevil would ever fail to save her. Yet in the last page, as we read the will, Bullseye emerges from the shadows smiling like the boogeyman. A smile that says, "You weren't what I was expecting, but you'll do." And it's left up in the air what horror Bullseye brought upon the innocent woman. But it recontextualizes the entire story. Where you once believed you were the son reading this, it turns out you're actually Matt Murdock reading your wife's will, and finding out through reading it how you not only were the cause of her death in some way, but you were also going to have a child as well. Just imagine that level of sheer despair, folks. Jesus. From here, Bullseye goes on to kill loads of innocents.
I couldn't be no superhero, bro. I'm telling you, I'd have to be like Deadpool. I have to be an anti-hero. I had to be like Deadpool and Wolverine, like an anti-hero, because I cannot let no nigga slide, bro, with that, bro. I was about to have a whole family, and bro killed him. Switchy, shit, son. What is you talking about, nigga? That nigga might dodge that shit, I don't give a fuck. All through that bitch. Fucking 3 glizzies on the side, nigga. You know I'm coming. That nigga's gonna have to die, bro. He's gotta die. He's gotta die. Call up my Air Force, Brody. Have that nigga drop a tactical nuke on this shit, bro. I do not care, bro. I'll flatten the whole city just to kill this nigga at this point, bro. No way, bro. And nah, the real fact of the matter is, the nigga did it twice. He did it twice, bro. He did that shit twice.
with the task of killing the Punisher, which doesn't turn out well in his favor, securing him a spot in the Thunderbolts led by the psychotic lunatic known as Norman Osborn, aka the Green Goblin. I think we all know that by now. Going on missions with other villains that may or may not lead to their own horrific demise. Only, Bullseye lives through all of them, and not only that, upon Norman Osborn being appointed head of
Wait, so fucking... They had a little, like prison type shit, community service with these niggas? They had prison community service for villains? Yeah, nah, bro. What's this? You said the 90s was a crazy time, so this is 90s comics, bro? Yeah, 90s.
Shield and...
Look at their outfits, bro. Who is this nigga on the left? With an S on his shit. I don't even know that nigga. We got Wolverine.
Bullseye lives through all of them, and not only that, upon Norman Osborn...
We got Spidey. This is when he used in his Venom arc. Oh shit, you still rocking Venom in this shit? Crazy. I don't know that nigga on the far left. Did that? Yeah, nah. That's obviously Captain Marvel right there. Iron Man. Actually never seen Hero of America Iron Man before. That's kind of wild. That's fire. That nigga on the right, I don't know, he seemed familiar for, I don't remember that nigga name. Wolverine obviously looking zesty as hell. I don't know why they drew this nigga so zesty in this shit. Who's that? Fucking... Hawkeye? No, not Hawkeye. I don't know. Is that Hawkeye? We're gonna say Hawkeye for now, but I don't know. I would assume Hawkeye, but I'm not sure.
Osborn being appointed head of S.H.I.E.L.D. and leader of the Avengers by, taking down the
I don't know who that nigga is.
Skrulls and all that stuff. Norman selects S.H.I.E.L.D. and leader of the Avengers by, taking down the Skrulls and all that stuff. Norman selects key villains to dress up as heroes the public knows and loves, like Wolverine's evil son Daken to dress up as Wolverine. Matt Gargan at the time...
His evil son Daken to dress up as Wolverine? Yeah, nah. Oh yeah, it is. Oh, it says it under the...
Upon Norman...
Oh, it's not even in this scene. It's not even in that clip. Why does it show up afterward, though? Nah, what
all
the
that
fuck?
stuff. Norman selects key villains to dress up as heroes the public knows and loves, like...
Sentry? Do not know that nigga. Miss Marvel, obviously. Ares. Or Ares. Don't know that nigga. But Wolverine, Hawkeye, yep, I was right.
Like Wolverine's evil son Daken to dress up as Wolverine. Matt Gargan, at the time Venom, to pose as Spidey. And Bullseye...
Oh, that is Venom. Yo, how's he making himself, like... Nah, that's crazy, bro. He's making his body literally smaller, so he looks like fucking Spider-Man. Because Venom is humongous. That nigga Venom, like, Ares size probably or bigger, bro.
To pose as Hawkeye. Yeah, you could say that Bullseye loves dressing up as heroes and discrediting their names. The guy does it so much. It's while in Norman Osborn's Dark Avengers that he takes on jobs set by Norman, like bombing a building with 107 innocent people inside, or killing the Sentry's wife, for instance. This moment is so guttural to read.
What is this, 3D? He was doing this back in the 90s?
It was one of those viscerally terrifying moments in a story where you have hope that the wife will be saved, where there are moments of pause for build-up, as if the Sentry will arrive in time. Only he never does. And it's how Bullseye taunts the Sentry's wife before killing her that gets me every time I read this moment. Now, despite Bullseye's gig working for Norman Osborn's Dark Avengers really doing wonders for him, basically allowing him to kill anyone he wants as Bullseye and then slip back into his heroic Hawkeye persona, if you could even call it that, this job inevitably crumbles due to Norman Osborn unable to contain his inner goblin, which in turn gets the Dark Avengers dismantled, exposed, and subsequently locked away, now on the way to Riker's Island to serve out several life sentences, Bullseye manages to escape by faking his death to kill guards that were ill-equipped to take him on, in which Bullseye makes a beeline to a place called Shadowland, which housed an evil, possessed Daredevil newly appointed as the leader of the ninja cult known as the Hand. That's a lot to take in, I know, but it'll...
The Hand? The Hand Clan? They gonna throw Ninja Turtles in this bitch too now? Come on, bro. Oh, shit. I don't muted it.
Known as the Hand. That's a lot to take in, I know, but it'll all get explained when I make a 2-hour-long Daredevil history video in the near future. Now, Bullseye shows up to Shadowland, and he's like, "Fuck you, Daredevil, I hate you, I'm gonna kill you now." And Daredevil's like, "Yeah? Well, I'll do you one better." Bullseye goes, "Oh yeah? What would that be?" Daredevil says, "Oh, I'll just fucking kill you." Ending the story of Lester / Leonard / Benjamin
Oh, that's... Oh yeah, that's Dark Daredevil right there. Oh yeah. Forgot Daredevil had this one.
Dex / Poindexter. Only it sort of isn't. See, a guy by the name of Denny Deaver starts seeing Bullseye everywhere he goes. Denny has always had the natural ability to see and speak to the dead, and it could be that it's just a mutant ability of his or something. But right after Bullseye's death, his soul started to torment Denny, driving Denny to kill innocent people because of Bullseye's say-so, rallying a funeral for Bullseye, and finally dying guns blazing because Bullseye told Denny if he did, he'd finally leave him alone. In which Denny finally got the peace he wanted for so long, just at the cost of his own life. Now enter Lady Bullseye. And no, he doesn't turn into a woman. This is just someone altogether different. But when Lady Bullseye was a child, she was a victim of human trafficking, and nearly sold off to some awful people in the black market. If not for her knight in shining armor, Bullseye, hired to take out the men running the human trafficking ring. Never really interacting, but sharing a glance and thankful for the freedom he had given her once again, she dedicated her life to becoming just like him. It was only after Bullseye's death and several resurrection rituals on him that Leonard would come back basically 2/3 of the way dead. Now barely alive, unable to do anything but basically think, he becomes the mastermind, and works tirelessly to make sure Matt Murdock's life is constantly miserable. First by desecrating his father's grave, then stealing the remains and planting them in his desk drawer to frame him for going insane, kidnapping and torturing the fucking Spot of all villains to mess with Matt's ex-wife by...
The Spot? What the fuck? Yo, bro, this nigga needs to be put in Marvel Rivals. Put this nigga in Marvel Rivals, bro. He kidnapped the Spot. Yo, bro, this nigga's like a fucking trans-dimensional demon type shit, nigga. How the fuck? How the fuck? How do you even kidnap them? It makes no sense, bro.
Teleporting her in and out of Matt's apartment to
insane.
basically remind him of the love he lost and will never have again, and then make several groups of homeless people go through the same accident Matt went through to get his powers, so to create the ultimate warrior with the abilities of Daredevil while keeping his sight. This warrior is named Akari, and he literally beats Daredevil within an inch of his life, to the point the man without fear feels fear. Matt constantly looks over his shoulder, terrified of Bullseye's ultimate warrior, and it takes everything he has to defeat Akari along with Lady Bullseye, to the point that Bullseye essentially loses to his own hubris, after accidentally becoming exposed to the chemicals he used on all those innocent people to create Akari. In turn, Bullseye loses all of his senses, which he rightfully deserves. But the Hand, an all-encompassing assassin cult, with pillars of power all around the world, felt like Bullseye could still be of use to them, because of his particular set of skills, after all. So they used several rituals to bring him back to tip-top condition. Yet how did Bullseye repay them, though, you may ask? By killing their leader and going off the radar to go back to a life as a freelance assassin. From here, there's a brief miniseries about Bullseye's return to form, taking jobs.
So they use all their special tactics to bring all this nigga's senses back. And this nigga just kills their leader dibs.
And taking names, ending off with a line that made me think to try and make this video again. I say again because I made an entire Bullseye video twice.
Nigga kidnapped another villain just to torture one guy, bro. Come on, bro.
Years ago, but because I made it...
Mind you, that villain's like a portal demon.
on a fucking HP Chromebook that could work better as a door stopper than an actual computer. The files got corrupted twice after it was completely done, making me never want to try and make this video again. But the quote by Bullseye that reeled me back in comes from the final pages of his miniseries. Bullseye was hired to protect the son of one of the most notorious mob bosses in the world, and knowing that a turf war would spark if the father died, leaving everything to the son's taking, he chose to speed up the process by killing the father with the very money he was given protecting his son. The son, crying in fear, asks why he'd kill him, knowing he isn't ready to lead a gang by himself, to which Bullseye says, "Everyone loves to watch a car crash. I did it so I could watch the wolves tear you apart, but most of all, I did it because I'm me. And sometimes, I like to see people suffer." Such a genuinely perfect line that completely sums up the entirety of Bullseye as a character. After which, Bullseye would be relegated to a few brief cameos as part of a group of villains hired to destroy Hell's Kitchen, until his apprehension led him into his most up-to-date arc, where he had been imprisoned under Rikers Island to be experimented on. Under the orders of Mayor Wilson Fisk, Bullseye would be cloned over and over again till he could have a cloned version of Bullseye that'd be more obedient and less insane as a reliable asset to his cause. And as most things go with villains in prisons, it eventually goes horribly wrong, leading into Bullseye killing all the people that had experimented on him, freeing his clones, and deciding while he was at it, he was going to go on a mass killing spree in New York for 8 days straight. Yet this little clone arc doesn't last long. See, because within this story, Bullseye has grown more insane than usual. He's convinced that an angel has been sent down by God to give him the task of becoming the greatest assassin in the world. Bullseye, fully invested, teams with his clones to succeed. But it's through Bullseye's twisted games and Elektra basically saying that if he were really this almighty godsend assassin, he wouldn't need clones to do a job he can do himself, leading Leonard to questioning if he was really the real Bullseye or not in the first place. Through the professional gaslighting from Elektra, Bullseye kills each of his own clones, and it's in that moment that Daredevil swoops in and dispatches him, which brings us up to date with everything Bullseye, with him now as a social media influencer, and teaming together with the devious, corrupt, nefarious, and vicious degenerate Spider-Girl. This girl is fucking evil, bro. Bullseye taught her to punch people's teeth out and use them as brass knuckles. What? However, there is that one story involving Bullseye and the Punisher I still have to bring up. I haven't really brought it up because it takes place in an entirely separate continuity from the Marvel line, called Punisher Max. See, in Punisher Max, it takes place in a world where there aren't really any superheroes, set in this extremely grounded world where only the Punisher is the main hero, if you could even call him that. And every story featured through Punisher Max takes place from the Vietnam War to the early 2000s. In this story, it's the final years of Frank Castle's life. He's old. He's tired. He's old. He's become a living legend, and no one has the guts to stand up to him. So this new guy on the block known as Wilson Fisk gets the idea to make up this fictional mob boss called the Kingpin, pooling all of the Mafia's resources and families to work for this quote-unquote Kingpin, so that while the Mafia does their work, the Punisher will be too distracted going after this Kingpin to disrupt everything else they've got going on. This all comes to a head with Wilson Fisk dispatching the main heads of the Mafia and actually becoming the infamous Kingpin in the process. However, the Punisher is still after the Kingpin despite him now living in an ivory tower with guards galore, so the Kingpin gets the idea to hire the best assassin in the world, Bullseye. Bullseye's introduction is pretty funny to say the least, because when we meet him, he's already on a contract to kill this corrupt businessman, literally showing up with no clothes on. He basically arrives proposing the idea that if the businessman can pay him more than his contractor paid him, he'll just let him go free. Of course, we all know he's just playing with his food. However, Bullseye begins to start farting up a storm, leading the whole discussion into the bathroom with him doing his business, till he uses the opportunity to kill everyone in the bathroom and finally his target, because Bullseye never quits on a job. Ever. After which he gets a call for a hit on Frank Castle, agreeing to do the job so long as his rate is tripled. Throughout his time in the story, he really displays himself as this loose cannon, this wild card, that could slip off the handle at any second. But he isn't really crazy, he just wants others to believe he is. If anything, he's just in his own world and everyone else is just living in it to him. He doesn't see people as people either, more like puppets with strings that could be cut at any given moment, showing little regard for anyone's life including his own. Because on the job, he really freaks out some of Kingpin's men, making them drive him all over New York to get a lay of the land so he can feel what Frank feels for New York. He even chooses to live in one of Frank Castle's old bunkers to study how he went about his everyday life. He tracks down some of his old friends and tortures them to understand his character and his background. And finally, he kidnaps 4 families and subjects them to the same horrific acts that were dealt out to Frank Castle's family to feel what Frank felt on that fateful day. It really and truly is gut-wrenching to read. Watching this family come to terms with the fact that they are going to die, yeah, you really have to read this story for yourself, because even right now, how I'm summarizing it, I feel like I'm doing it a disservice. Since in the end, once Bullseye finishes isolating himself for a week from all human interaction to really absorb everything and understand Frank, when he finally strikes, we get a few brief but funny moments between the pair. It's brutal, but at times a bit funny as well, because it's interesting to see Frank, this cold and calculated guy, take on this dude who will use his own vomit to kill him. The way his face is drawn in these instances pretty much says it all, ending the fight with Bullseye whispering the last words Frank ever said to his wife before dying, breaking Frank's soul and completing his mission in taking out the Punisher, after which Bullseye falls into a coma with Frank the one to shoot him much later on in the story. It's only much later throughout Frank's story getting fleshed out, we see that Frank never loved his family. He was adrift after coming back home from the war, and was looking for another one the whole time he was back. His family tried everything to connect with him, and Frank certainly tried himself, but it was like mashing puzzle pieces together that were never meant to fit at all. So many days and nights hearing his wife crying at his bedside, and so many days and nights adrift waiting for something to happen. Frank took his family to the park on that fateful day, where he told his wife that he wanted a divorce and that he made his peace with leaving their lives for good. The last thing Frank had ever said to his family was that he didn't love them anymore. And in that very moment, they were killed right in front of him. You're meant to believe that Frank became the Punisher that day, using his family's death as the reason to erase all crime. But in truth, Frank was always the Punisher deep down. His family's death was just an excuse he could use to justify his actions every second of the day. He was just waiting for something to set him off, and his family was just that. So when Bullseye brought that reality back to the forefront, it crushed Frank so hard because by that point he could barely remember that day anymore. Remember, it took Bullseye just a few words to totally destroy the Punisher's psyche. I low-key kinda turned the tail end of this video into a Punisher analysis video for a second, but Jason Harrison's Punisher Max is really just that good, I'm telling you. But with that, I just want to make a final request to Marvel to add Bullseye into Marvel Rivals. I know that he's definitely going to be added very later down the road, and certainly after Daredevil's inclusion, obviously. But trust that I think about his playset almost...
Daredevil's going to be worse than Iron Fist. I'm telling y'all niggas right now. Daredevil's going to fuck up any flyer possible. That nigga Daredevil? That nigga's him. He is him. He has all types of knowledge with every type of weapon. And the nigga's strong enough to wall run a little bit. Like he playing BO3 in this bit. Come on, bro.
Every day. Almost as much as this haunting boss fight in the Punisher video game from when I was a kid. Look at this dude's haunting and piercing blue eyes. It's so unsettling. And it's not made any better that you have to play hide and seek with this guy. And you're forced to only shoot him in the head to inflict damage. Combined with Steve Blum voicing Bullseye, it's a boss that I'll always remember, despite how silly my looking back on it being horrifying is today. Which reminds me, since we're on the topic of video games, since Marvel almost pushed out a Daredevil video game with various different villains, hopefully one day a Daredevil game could be made, and maybe Bullseye could be a side mission akin to Deadshot's in Arkham City or something. Especially even more so now because of his resurgence in Born Again. That dude that's playing him is the perfect Bullseye. And hopefully by the show's good praises, it could lead to a video game maybe finally coming out. And to close out this video, I'll say that Bullseye is a heartless, gutless lunatic that definitely deserves all the pain he usually ends up getting on various occasions. And I hope after you watching this video that I've convinced you to believe he's Marvel's most sadistic villain, and not somebody to aspire to be what so fucking ever. This character is demented, and while he is one of my favorite villains ever, I think that this person is completely irredeemable, and not a person to aspire to be in any form or fashion. He's a messed up individual that deserves nothing good coming his way. With that, I hope y'all liked the video. Make sure to follow my Insta, my Twitter. Follow some of these guys as well. They're all fucking awesome. And as always, I'll catch y'all on the flip side.
Bro, that's a fucking crazy one, bro. This was made 13 days ago. I'm definitely gonna watch that Daredevil Born Again show he was talking about. I've never heard about that at all. But yeah, bro, just take that in for a second, bro. This nigga, and he said I just realized, I was thinking he only did it to one family the whole entire time. That nigga said he did it to 4 families. That nigga had to do it 4 times to understand how that nigga felt in the moment. 4 times, bro. That's individually fucking a wife, a daughter, and a son. 4 times over again. 12. That's 12 people, bro. Just to understand one person's feelings so you can kill that nigga. No, bro. No. No, 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 no. Some of the wrong people are going to see this video, and it's going to be up in the air after that. Because, bro, the shit that he did, bro, like, it makes sense on, like, if you really hated and despised a person and wanted to see them suffer. But, damn, he didn't even know these niggas. He was doing all of this. That's the crazy part. That's the real crazy part that we all gotta understand. He was doing this at the end of the day for a paycheck. That's it, bro. That's it, bro. For a paycheck. It's not like he was buying bitches with it. He could just snatch up one if he wanted to. What was he spending on? Food? Suits? Bro. No, bro. And then he got plot armor too because he got fucking all his shit rejuvenated by fucking Foot Clan. Come on, bro. Come on, bro. He do need to be put in Marvel Rivals though, boys. I ain't gonna lie. But yeah, bro, that's Marvel's most sadistic villain right there, Bullseye. Don't read nothing about him, bro. You're gonna puke, obviously. The nigga puke to try to kill Punisher. No, bro. Nah. I don't think anybody could beat that. Like, who else is matching that? I don't even think, like, Doctor Doom or what's the one that I'm thinking? Darkseid. I don't think neither of those two matching that, and they're like pretty sadistic characters too, from what I remember. Why do I think only DC villains are? That's why, because I don't really know a lot of Marvel villains, bro. Anyways, yeah, no, bro. Can't have niggas walking around like that. But yeah, bro. That's it. I'm gonna catch y'all, bro. I'm gonna catch you. Shoot.